Welcome back, friends. It's been some time since I last spoke of this box, but not from neglect nor from defeat. I chose this instead to wait. For knowledge, it is to be shared, must first be made sound. This chapter holds a certain weight for me. You see, it marked the very first journey my wife and I and our beloved dog, Biscuit, took boots to the ground. And in that journey, we found more clues. We found an adventure worth remembering. Parting from my original solve demanded more than sentiment. That path had led me to a place of rare beauty, and such experiences cling to the soul. Yet affection alone cannot be the judge of truth. To set aside what I once held required that the new clues prove themselves not only pleasing, but necessary. That their strength of reason outweighed my attachment to memory. It is only then could I consent to move forward, guided not by desire, but by what is most sound. Because beauty can bind the heart, but truth must guide the mind. In this video, I was joined by Ohio Jones, a treasure hunter who's been pouring his energy into cracking There's Treasure Inside by John Collins Black, especially the Appalachian Footpath box. What makes Ohio stand out is not just his dedication in the field, but the way he shares his process. You see, every week on Substack and Medium, he publishes detailed breakdowns of clues, theories, and strategies. His writing has built a growing following of readers, and it offers something you don't always find in YouTube videos. It offers a fresh perspective and deeper analysis that really adds to the conversation. And on a personal note, one of the best things about this whole treasure hunting process is the people you meet along the way. You see, Ohio Jones isn't just a fellow searcher. I've come to consider him a friend. So I'm excited to have him here today. And if you want to support what he's doing, make sure you follow him on Substack and Medium so you don't miss his latest updates. I'll provide the links to his work in the description below. And now I invite you to sit back and enjoy this episode.
I wanted to get to the coordinates where we're at. I have maps open here. I mean, if you open up Google Maps and you drag that little person, like a street view on the trail, you can do it as well. And if there's like little blue dots, and when you hit it, it supposedly pictures on the trail at that point.
When it comes to this hunt, maps aren't just tools, they're gateways. Every pixel, every trail marker could be the clue that leads us closer. JCB always circles back to one idea: beauty. Not city skylines, natural beauty. The kind you stumble into on the trail and instantly feel in your gut.
And, you know, part of me thinks that this is going to be a beautiful place where he's hidden it. And he said that. I did watch a interview I never seen before. It was 9 months ago with some sports card collector guy. And he did say that and I think he said it in the most recent interview, that he hit it somewhere that's beautiful, right? This trail doesn't really look that beautiful, or at least from the pictures. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, yeah, I've thought also similar things, especially when I saw in his last interview about a place that's beautiful to me. So I guess maybe a little bit from his point of view, right? But also, I think there's a certain beauty that everybody can agree on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
because
beauty isn't necessarily with a giant like building in the background when you think of the Appalachian Trail, right?
right,
When you scroll through all trails, you see it: waterfalls, forests that feel otherworldly, But scattered across 2,200 miles, you have to ask, what stands out enough for him to choose?
Yeah, because I'm sure the same for you, but I've been looking at through all trails through Google Maps and the pictures. Some of these pictures pretty amazing. Like I wanted to be there.
Right, right.
Waterfalls and some look like you're in some magical forest or whatever. But I'm sure over the 2,200 miles, that's pretty common, right?
Yeah, you would think. I would think there's probably a decent mix of along a major highway at some points, right? Or kind
Yeah.
of close to in proximity. And then I'm sure a large portion is just the middle of nowhere.
And what compels me on this spot are a few things. First, I was thinking he's not going to hide it somewhere where there's a lot of foot traffic, right? Because he wants to be, he doesn't want to be seen. So, so this is why this spot sort of jumped out at me. A, it's not necessarily a popular place. There's not a lot of, things on all trails about the trail or anything where that exact spot is, which is surprising because it is the historical halfway point, right? And then again, the halfway point, and I'm trying to force like something from the book into halfway point type thing, maybe end to end, middle. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Safety isn't a side note here. Hiding these treasures was stressful for JCB. He wasn't looking for danger, he was looking for solitude.
But what better place to put it, like right dead center of the trail? Is this truly a place that it would be? You know?
Right. Well, I think a couple of things about one about the hiking off trails because I did a bit of that when I looked, right? Because you're there to treasure hunt, so you want
Yeah.
to look. And something that I realized because he talks a lot about safety, right, is you can slowly say, "Well, let me look behind this next rock or tree," and then you see another one. You say, "Let me look behind this next rock or tree," and quickly you can get kind of far away from the trail to where, hey, I need to turn around and look back real quick. So I try to make my rule like the trail always needs to be within
Yeah.
eye distance of where you are,
Yeah.
just in terms of safety, right? To be able to get there. So that's kind of been my rule, I guess, for myself in terms of how to think about that. And then the isolation part that you talked about, how he wants to kind of put it in a place where there's not a lot of foot traffic, not a lot of people. Especially if you've heard like his last interviews, it seems like it was super stressful for him to hide these treasures,
Yeah.
right? Like all the work he put into all of this scouting the locations and how relieved he was when it was finally done, just to not be seen and successfully be rid of all of these things, which
Yeah.
makes me think at least that most of them are going to be in a pretty desolate or isolated area.
You made a good point of looking back at the trail on where you're at. We walked off just to one of the camping areas directly off where they had a shelter, and it was only like 20 feet. And I was like, how do we get back on the trail? You
Yeah.
know, and granted, I'm sure there's people out there that have zero problem with this, right? They're veteran hikers, but JCB set this up not for the veteran hiker. This is to the average person with the average health and will be able to find it and find their way back to the trail.
Right. Or if you're from the Midwest, right? If you ever wandered into a cornfield when you were younger and you're like, how the heck do I get back out of this thing? And
Yeah, yeah,
you end
I
up way
mean,
down the road before you're finally out of it, right? So, I
yeah, I
mean, it can
mean,
happen quickly.
yeah, and depending on which trail or which box you're going for, I'm telling you, 100 yards off Appalachian Trail, at least parts I've been, you might as well be in no man's land. I would say it's got to be at least 40 feet, 50 tops away.
And he wasn't designing this for elite outdoorsmen. He wanted the average hunter to succeed. People who might lose a trail in 20 feet but could still find their way back. Then there's a container, mysterious by design. But the moment the first one surfaces, the rest of the puzzle shifts. Suddenly, the target is defined.
Well, we talked about in the last videos what container it's in because It never really dawned on me.
And that's important too to think about because that's what you're looking for. I think that part of the incentive thing, right, is that some of those aren't going to be able to fit in there.
Right.
In terms of having someone come forward and actually say, "Hey, I found it."
Like if he's so secretive about the box is hidden in, it's going to be revealed after the first one's found, right?
That's true.
I
And
mean,
maybe that's also kind of what he could have been referring to if you saw in the recent interview about I think it'll be easier once two of the boxes are found.
yeah,
And I kind of took that in terms of coins. Maybe the coins are all used in a similar way, but
yeah,
maybe it's also like you were saying, hey, people know what they're actually looking for out there. Even after the first one's found, that kind of
yeah.
lightens the load a bit. You're like, okay, we're looking for a black box about this size.
When narrowing a map this big, boundaries matter. For me, if a trail doesn't connect back to the Appalachian Trail, it's off the board. It keeps a search disciplined.
We're at the right by the Pine Ridge campground, is right down the street from the parking on this place. So to get to the trailhead to the halfway point on that trail leg is 1,000 feet.
That's also another one of those things that you could just keep in your back pocket to kind of cross reference later,
Yeah,
right? Like you find something and say, okay, was it within this radius? You
yeah,
know, kind of like your own filter in a way.
yeah,
Yeah. I think, again, once the first one is found, I think it'll clue a lot of people into
yeah.
with your idea of rocks.
You know,
Yeah. In my head, I've said that kind of it's the Appalachian Trail, then you have the trails that come off of it, or the Blue Blaze trails, right? I
yeah,
think is that's what they're referred to. Those are all fair game for me,
yeah,
right? Now, the Appalachian Trail, and then separately there's a state park maybe outside of it, but none of those trails actually touch the Appalachian Trail.
yeah,
That to me would be like in the excluded side.
yeah,
I guess that's kind of my dividing line is that the trail that it's hidden on should, at some way or another, be able to trace back to the Appalachian Trail. Yeah, I think that as well. And that it's like you're saying, it becomes not a puzzle
yeah,
at that point, right? You
yeah.
could brute force it for lack of a
Sure,
better phrase.
sure. And that's where
And
a lot of people get in the trail part on LRP, right?
mhm.
Which I
And
still
just think,
don't.
yeah, this is just too easy for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, because it really you could literally just take a day off of work or on a weekend and just go through that whole interactive map and eventually tie it on to something, right?
Yeah, in designing that, you would know somebody could do that.
These puzzles can look complex, but the truth is, they're not meant for masterminds. They're meant for persistence, not overthinking. Look closely at the language. Words like mystical, romantic, blue hills, mentions of flora and fauna, the rhythm of crickets. They're more than poetic, they're signals. And then there's joy. He repeats it. Quiet joy, lasting joy. It doesn't feel accidental. It feels like a thread woven throughout the hunt itself.
That's how I think too. I'm like, well, there's so many people that are like so intelligent. If he's saying you don't have to be one of those people to solve it, there's kind of some certain things that it rules out. There's certain things where I think some maybe people get a bit too complicated sometimes,
Yeah,
um, and it gets too far away from what an average person, right, would be able to
yeah,
do.
Symbols matter too. The bald hills, the bald figure, the color blue weaving in and out of the chapter. These aren't filler details. They're puzzle pieces waiting to be slotted just into the right place.
yeah. So the text that I was looking at, which led me to the elevation change end to end, I have like, so yeah, 14 US states. I'm trying to look for something that did that. The cutting across almost 2,200 miles of public land. I mean, originally what got me to Wild Bald was the 450,000 feet, I think converted to miles or something like that. Got me 85 miles up the trail. Just if you snapped a line, it got me to that area, which I don't know, hindsight probably wasn't too good. But when I got there, there was a ton of stuff that really fit in. But he also used adjectives like, beautiful, romantic, mystical, trail. So you have that set of things, right? Then you have directional ones, crossing over bald hills. Um, you have colors, like blue mountains, and then the other blue that was mentioned throughout the book. But then you had like smell of dogwood, rhododendron, mountain laurel. And I know these plants and flora are all around on the Appalachian Trail, but on some of those, you look at the pictures and that's all you see in there, right? Is really abundant. But then you had the serenaded by ambient sounds, a slight breeze, scurrying squirrels, birds, crickets, and cicadas. So then I start trying to see if I can associate that with the pictograms. Slight breeze could be that one that looks like, I don't know, smoke or whatever. And then, he brings up throughout the whole book joy, right? And in the end, he goes, I hope they bring you joy. And then one of them brought a quiet sense of joy. Are these like markers of, the different way he describes joy? Does that play in as well?
Yeah, it's something I never considered, but I mean, joy, an obvious theme of the book,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think it's out of the question, certainly.
Yeah. But he then goes on to say, as with the other boxes, I've left you the exact instructions for opening the box in case you want help getting inside. He never says the exact instructions on the other ones.
Right, yeah.
Like, and there's a reason. I mean, if I could see if he said it in here or maybe said it in one other one, it would be different, or even the larger share or line share. I don't know why he doesn't call it line share, but he specifically says, I have left for you the exact instructions for opening it. Maybe the exact part is you're exactly at the midway point, or because that is
Right,
it.
or I was going to ask you if you thought maybe he's tipping his hand that the ultimate solve will get you like to the exact
Right.
location.
Yeah. So I'm looking for exact things, right? Like the Connecticut one, I'm going to pull that up.
Yeah, and
It,
also just some of the some of the things you pointed out there are a lot of the same observations I had, especially like the bald hills, and then there's a bald guy as one of the symbols,
yeah.
right? Blue was obviously mentioned many times throughout this whole chapter. And then the paragraph or the sentence there where it's like everything is incredibly descriptive with
Hmm.
the silent breezes, scurrying squirrels, all that. That to me is just something that I don't know what, but I feel like something's hiding in there.
Yeah.
It's a spidey sense kind of sentence for me that
Yeah.
I don't know what it feels important and I can't tell you why or how to use it yet, but it just feels like there's something there, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Those clips were just a taste of everything we unpacked. There's a lot more ahead, trust me. But before we get there, I want to focus on something specific. The states I'm about to share, Connecticut, Vermont, and Pennsylvania, aren't just random picks. They become the central thread in my conversations with Ohio Jones, and they'll set the direction for the videos that follow. So let's dig into how the clues stack up in each one and see where that trail might be pointing us. Let's start with Connecticut. There are a lot of connections here that grab my attention. Robert Motherwell, the one who is quoted at the beginning of the chapter, lived in Greenwich, already tying this state to creative imagery. But more importantly, we've got Bear Mountain and Lion's Head, both right on the Appalachian Trail. A mountain lion that could easily point to a lion's head, and Bear Mountain happens to be the highest peak in Connecticut. You see, they sit in the Taconic Mountains, and both are iconic stops on the trail. Then there's a 1727 NE marker. On the Appalachian Trail map, about a mile into Connecticut, you hit an elevation of 1,727 feet. That feels like a deliberate connection. The skier symbol may not mean a ski resort here. It might just be reinforcing the idea of a mountainhead, which ties back along again to Lion's Head. Now, I could be wrong, but stay with me. One more layer. Nearby, you have Inca's Wood Preserve. That could explain the South American looking pictograms, since the Incas are tied to imagery of tribute, feathers, armor, and copper. It feels like too much overlap to ignore. Now, that may be a stretch as well, but it's what we got to work with. And don't forget Connecticut's own symbols. Charter oak, the tree that as closely resembles in the magnifying glass. The mountain laurel, which is mentioned in the chapter text. Even the dinosaur tracks at Eubrotes, which could be represented by the odd-looking pictogram on the map. And have I mentioned the state flag? The flag of Connecticut features a royal blue field with a white Baroque-style shield in the center. It's displaying 3 grapevines bearing purple grapes. Below the shield is a white banner with the Latin state motto, Qui transtulit sustinet, which translates, He who transplanted still sustains, written in dark blue letters. The 3 grapevines are said to represent the 3 oldest settlements in the Connecticut colony, while the motto reflects the colony's biblical origins. The state's identity is packed with imagery that mirrors what we're seeing in the puzzle. To me, all of this makes Bear Mountain and Lion's Head a strong candidate for where the box could be. So if you don't like the Connecticut theory, we also have the Vermont theory. So moving north, Vermont also lines up in an interesting way. And I'm not talking about Little Rock Pond. Right out the gate, the book says the Appalachian Trail crosses 14 states. And Vermont just happens to be the 14th U.S. state. That's a neat bit of symmetry. Then there's a repeating clue, 1727 NE. Now, if you take that as an elevation or a mileage marker, if you track that mileage from Springer Mountain, mile 1727 puts you in the Woodstock, Vermont area. That's northeastern Vermont on the Appalachian Trail. That's almost exactly where the dotted line seems to land on the map. And here's the kicker. Vermont's high point on the Appalachian Trail is Stratton Mountain at 3,940 feet, around mile marker 1642. That's about 85 trail miles before you reach the 1727 spot. So why does this all matter? Remember how the book mentions 450,000 feet of elevation change? If you convert that to miles, you get about, you guessed it, 85 miles. Again, the same distance. So we got this neat bit of math here and geography that seems to place Vermont firmly in play, right around Woodstock and Stratton. And if Connecticut and Vermont aren't your cup of tea, we have Pennsylvania. The Appalachian Trail runs more miles through Pennsylvania than just about anywhere else, so it's no surprise we'd see some clues pointing us here. The phrase cutting across 2,200 miles of land could mean the midpoint of the trail, and the midpoint is right here in Pennsylvania. Yes, you got it. The midpoint of the Appalachian Trail lands us in Pennsylvania. Then there's that 450,000 feet again. You know, the one of the elevation changes. If you flip the numbers 4 and 0, you get 40. Because he says 450,000 feet end to end. Get it? 4 and 0 being on each end. This points us at the 40th parallel north. That latitude runs straight through Pennsylvania. And if you plot it, you get coordinates around 40.0000 and negative 77.4036, which is right around the Appalachian Trail. And one last thing, the Pennsylvania state flag has some striking similarities to the Appalachian Trail box itself. That might not be a coincidence. So, between the midpoint, the math, and the visual connections, Pennsylvania deserves a closer look, and that is why it's landed up on my radar. So here we have it. These are my working theories. Connecticut with Bear Mountain and Lion's Head, Vermont with its 1727 mile marker and Stratton math, and Pennsylvania with the midpoint and 40th parallel. Each one has some weight. And the fun of this hunt is testing which of these threads eventually ties back to the box. You know, I'm not done with this box yet. That is for certain. I will continue searching for clues and boots on the ground until it is found, though. And I'll continue to update you with everything I find. So I want to thank you very much for watching and sticking around and supporting this channel. And as always, stay safe, stay curious, and stay tuned. Goodbye for now.